Happy
All right,
Sunday.
all right, everybody. Y'all know what it is. It is 3 o'clock Central Standard Time, 4 o'clock Eastern, 1 o'clock Pacific. So we are on multiple different time zones live on Facebook for Book Talk Live. This is part two of the series that, as promised, books to film, because we understand that one of the things about your book is that it has the opportunity to create additional income streams. So we have an expert on with us, my brother, from another mother. Y'all can see we look exactly like twins. So my brother, we go back at least 20 years, Mr. Richard Striebel. How you doing again, brother?
I'm good. Happy Sunday. How you doing?
Happy Sunday, man. I'm blessed. I'm blessed. Enjoying enjoying a little bit of the break from this rain. We got a little bit of a storm here in Texas last night, so
I heard, yeah.
yeah, that provided some really good sleep for most of us. I tried to stay away from going outside last night, which is not normal.
I,
Normally, I go
I
sit on
had
my
the
patio.
opposite. The weather was amazing here, but I couldn't sleep. So I had a rough tossing and turning night. I don't know why.
Oh man, well that's not good. Well, we glad that you made it to this side again. As they say, it's always better to be 6 feet up than 6 feet under. So we definitely appreciate you for making it here once again. So, and Miss Dora said, "Hey," and we got Miss Annie tuning in from Canada. So we got a few people on with us as we as we speak. But you'll probably hear a lot of background those beeps, people in the network. So last week we touched on some of your history, your journey, and if you can just give the people a quick refresher of who you are and the things that you've already done, so that they understand the information that we're giving is coming from definitely a credible source.
I'm Richard Striebel, and I was born in St. Louis, grew up in Texas, Houston, and South Texas, the Valley. And throughout my career, I've worked with some amazing people like Al Reinhardt, Robert Rodriguez, Tom Taylor. Um, I've got to meet a bunch of amazing directors and worked with them. Worked on almost 100 reality shows, as well as several different feature films and short films, commercials. I was a part of a group called LBTJ Group that won about 11 Telly Awards.
Nice.
So we were a pretty all-star squad there. Um, and for the most part, I've just been in the film industry per se for about 20 years in many different facets, from actor first to filmmaker. But along the way, I came up, from the electric side and ended up being a camera assistant and then a camera operator eventually. So kind of learned through the process, a lot about the process and also, what it takes to make it happen. Um, the writing part, I've dove into it a lot. I'm not necessarily a writer. I do come up with a lot of ideas, but I do let professional people that uh, devote their time to writing to help me write these things and write them in the long form and then into the script version. And that's been a very helpful process for me, fleshing out my ideas, which is one of the things that I wanted to talk about, is your understanding your audience and who you're writing to, as in pertaining to the content that you have on your book, and what your subject matter is, and where that is like one of the key processes, because it leads you in the direction of how you're going to produce this, how you're going to write it, as the script form, the locations, the funding, all the different things the aspects that come into the filmmaking process.
There you go. All right. And one of the things that stands out is, to me, because I know a lot of people these days are looking for that microwave solution, right? And what I mean by microwave solution is, I wanna go all the way to the top immediately. And just listening, you said you went from camera, you went from behind the scenes, you've done the acting, you've done the directing, you've done the producing, you've done it all. So, but you didn't start way at the top. You started at the bottom and put in the groundwork to get there. So there's a lot of experience and a lot of expertise that you have. One of the, as we've been talking behind the scenes, we've been talking about how to actually make this happen, and actually how to break it down for brand new authors, right? So a few things that I wanted to touch on is, you mentioned the script writing, and I think we briefly touched on that last week when we talked about the processes, not just the processes, but the software that would help new writers write their film. So can we touch just briefly, and we'll touch on a few points, because I know we're going way more in depth in this in an actual class that we have coming for brand new authors. I may have let the cat out the bag, but when we talk about production, tell me a few basic points that you can share with new authors or new filmmakers about the production process. What are some things that they need to know? Yeah.
We were talking about Final Draft. That's what we talked about. That's a tool that you can use that will keep you very organized and kind of give you a big platform to write the script version of your story. Yeah. And when you begin the production process of like, actually, you've already written your story, it's in script form, and you've gone through you've flushed out the things that you need to flush out in that process. Then the next step is starting to produce, and you want to pre-produce, so that you want to start making a list of things that might come up, that you might need, tools that you'll need, equipment that you'll need, and basically you're starting to build a business plan. Okay. And when you look at it from a producer's standpoint, you not only are trying to find funding for your project, but you're also trying to find the budget within your project of like what it's going to take to make it happen, and being honest with yourself. I tell this to a lot of people all the time. Don't sell yourself short when you're writing because you don't have the special effects or the what would be a huge budget. Go ahead and write it with everything possible that you want, and then you can scale it back, if need to. Or you wrote a feature film, but you're not going to have the money to do it, so then you would scale it down to a short film that then may possibly be able to be done a lot easier than a feature, right? Yeah. So those are kind of the things that you got to look at. But once you've kind of had the adjustment of what it is that you have in front of you, then that's when you start breaking down your budget, and how many days. It's usually you shoot one page, it's 1 to 2 pages a day. You want to do more than that, but to be pretty much where you need to be, it depending on, of course, how thick the dialogue is, but it's typically a page a minute. So you want to shoot, in other words, if you wrote 100 pages, that's going to be 100 minutes in the movie theater. So look at it like that. But so you want to break down these budgets and be honest with yourself in the sense of like, it's not going to take me 3 days, it's going to take me 4 days, it's going to and give yourself a little room because, different things always occur, or,
You got to
as
plan
much as
for
you
the
plan,
unexpected.
it just
Yeah.
happens, it happens. But that's just kind of like the process of like getting that going. I do want to touch more about it, and there's other things that are in more detail, but like you said, if you get with us on this class, this workshop we're going to have, we'll be able to break a lot of this stuff down way in more detail,
Yeah. And that's interesting, man. You mentioned that one page is about a minute of film, right? But I also like what you said. You said don't scale down the budget because, or don't write something out because you think it's going to cost too much. So that jumps into the funding, right? So on average, what would you say just a basic film, the production, the overall budget, the overall cost of it would be for a standard film?
I can't answer that like that, because a horror film is going to cost a different amount than a dramatic film. An action, action adventure type of, movie is going to cost way more, because there might be stunts and blowing up of things, into that. Right. So, it's a different budget, like you said earlier, depending on what you wrote or what you have in this script, that's going to lead you to this. Now, mind you, I've shot Eminem, which is our it's a comedy with me and JT Campos, and he's, I don't know if you guys know him, he's Boaz from Queen of the South, and
Okay.
and so like me and him are like Cheech and Chong, or the Latino Friday, right?
I can't
And
see
so
it in a comedy, man. Because all I know is the dude that's sitting in the limo with his brother talking about, oh, so you want to let me out? I got to kill this dude to be the top, and pop this brother. So that's, yeah, to go from gangster to to comedian is a big stretch. Yeah, but I can
and
see it. I know your personality, so.
yeah, so it's funny, it's hilarious, and we try to adapt that Netflix, Hulu, wants more, to have like series instead of just a feature film per se, right? And so you'd have different episodes and stuff like that. So we shot 4 episodes, mind you. They're only 6 minutes, 6 to 8 minutes long. So the episodes are pretty short, but good. But if you put them together, it would be a short film, right?
Okay.
It would be a half an hour of footage. And the way it's set up, it could be played either way. So we did this stuff with the intention of like having the ability to submit it in different formats. So that's why we were thinking that way. When we did this, we also did it with $3,000. Okay. Now, mind you, yeah, it's a very low budget. We didn't do it SAG. That's another thing too. Like when you're going into production, is your production going to be a SAG production, or is it going to be an independent production? And the difference between the two is SAG, is the union, the Screen Actors Guild union, and they protect the actors. They want to make sure it's a good working environment. They want to make sure they get paid. All of that stuff. So it's an awesome thing to have that in your corner as an artist, but sometimes you can't find the money to pay some of these actors or some of the crew or whatever, however you're working it out. And then you have to become independent, non-SAG. And, when you're SAG, you're following strategic rules, and your budget level is what is being paid out. Okay. So like, let's say you had $10,000. That means you're an ultra low budget for your movie. And you're like, well, that's $10,000. Yeah. But in the movie world, that's like small money,
Yeah.
but that means that you're ultra low SAG budget. That means you have to pay every actor at least $100 a day, right? Because that's the ultimate low, that you could pay them.
Okay.
And so that kind of lends into your budget. Going back to your budget again, if it's SAG, it's going to be something. If it's independent, it's going to be something. Now, like, I'm a SAG actor, right? But I'm not current right now. And so I can still do independent films and different things of that nature without getting penalized or getting kicked out of the union. Once you're SAG, you will no longer be able to do independent films. You could only do SAG projects, right?
Yeah.
And so that's where it kind of goes.
Yeah.
So once going back to our stuff, it was $3,000 for these 4 episodes. So essentially almost $1,000 an episode. But we had camera, lighting, locations, the actors that were involved, whether they were, in the background or actually, interacting with us in scenes. Nobody expected to get paid. They were doing it as a favor to help us get this project out, which now has won like 2 or 3 different film festivals and actually won Houston web series festival, in the International Web Series Festival. That was the first one we won with that project. But anyways, we came in as a group that the people that were around us wanted to help us. So we got very, very lucky in getting our project done. So if you can utilize things that you already have, then obviously that cuts your budget down, and at the time we owned a coffee shop in San Antonio, which had some land and other buildings and, parking lot and so on and so forth. So we utilized everything that we could in that area, for our locations, so that, we weren't renting somebody's location that we technically already had access to, something like that or similar. So, that, in answering your question, once again, it's kind of hard to just give you a budget because, gotta look at it.
You got so a few things that go into the budget from the sounds of it are the cost of the effects, the cost of the actors, whether it's independent or SAG, and then the actual location, if you had to pay for location different. So I've seen a lot of films where something like Avatar, where there's a lot of behind the scenes and they're doing stunts in green screen, right?
Uh-huh.
So that would be a completely different type of film, you're saying, based on
Right. But imagine this. Imagine instead of having all these different locations and driving around from location to location and setting up lighting at every location, sound, et cetera, et cetera. When you're doing green screen, you're usually in a studio, and it's usually soundproof, or, you can control the sound, and you're in one location. And so you just cut your budget in half because you're not moving around. You stayed in that location and you're knocking it all out. And the lighting is so much easier because you're purposely lighting it. You're just adjusting lighting a little bit. You're kind of set and go, so you could keep going. Now where the expense in that comes in is the person that has the ability to, digitally put the green screen, make the background what it is, and the time and the effort that takes, which is still could be cheaper than, locations and all that, but it's still a cost, right? Because you still have to have somebody to do that for you. If not, you're just going to have a green screen movie.
Yeah. So there's a couple of other things that I want to touch on before we just, kind of let it go more in detail about the details that we have for them. As we talked about, instead of it just being this week and last week, we're actually going to do one more week because we're still doing a lot of the behind the scenes to make sure that this course is something that actually has the information in so much detail, where somebody can actually take their book and turn it into a script that becomes an actual film. Now, whether it's even if it's just a pitchable film that they can pitch to the studios, or if it's we show them how to go about getting the script made into a film by giving them the insight. Um,
You just brought
so
up a point that I need to make sure people, it's kind of a catch-22 that people don't really know, or they forget or whatever, but it's a very important point. So when you have a project that is in the pitchable state, like you're ready to show it, whether it be visually or script wise, number one, you need to make sure that your script is copywritten, so it's yours and it doesn't get stolen, just like you do with your book or whatever.
exactly.
And make it legally bound to you and your company. The other thing, the point that I was trying to get at is that me and you, as let's just say as performers, as artists, as the creators of the content, we are not allowed typically to go and knock on Netflix door and pitch something. You have to have representation, like a manager, like a lawyer, and maybe after they set up the meeting and you get in there, you could pitch it then yourself, but it has to go, you have to go through this process of getting, a lawyer, entertainment lawyer, your manager, to actually walk through the door for you, because
So you have
they
to have
don't,
somebody walk you in. Yeah.
yeah, it's just one of those things. It's just, that's just how it is. I've been to certain offices and they were like, are you a lawyer? Or are you, I could have lied, right? But
Like, who is this dude? Wait a minute, we don't know you yet.
but I was trying to be honest, of course, and no, and so come back please with the manager, lawyer. And in many ways, if you really think about it, that's kind of like an athlete or a musician going to get their contract, basically, and they always have to have a lawyer, an agent, somebody there to represent them to protect their best interests, and that's basically what it ends up being. Is
It's protecting
somebody,
both sides from
yeah,
any foul play. That he said, she said type of. Okay, that's good information to know. So, how do you go about finding, like, what's one small tip? Because I know we're gonna go way more in detail on finding the right actors, the right cast for your production. So what is maybe one tip that you can give, even just on this, for somebody who's like, you know what, I got this film idea, I've been thinking about it, and they don't want to turn it into, the next hood film. They wanted to turn it into the next good film. What is one suggestion that you would give?
well, it's kind of funny in this way, especially in the times that we're at right now, and with a lot of the racial tension and stuff like that. But you need to be racially, like, clear. Like, I want a Latino, age 32, 6 foot tall. You got to make sure that when you're breaking down your characters or developing your characters, that you're very clear on what they are, not just a guy, a girl. Be strong in saying, I want a African American woman, I want an Asian man, whatever it may be. And it sounds silly, but it puts it very clear to what you want and what you're going to get.
So be very specific.
Very specific.
Okay.
Also,
go ahead.
Anybody that's making any kind of project, the reason why things sell is because there's somebody in there that you recognized or that So the bigger the star, the more fame a person has that you can put on your movie, the more success you're going to have with your movie, just because people are going to tune in.
Yeah.
Now that doesn't mean that movie makes or breaks because of that, but it does. You could have an amazing film and it could do a lot of things and win awards, and if it doesn't have big names, it's going to end up reaching people in the long run, but it's going to plateau. Where nowadays, if you see that this movie's got Tom Cruise, I mean, all of a sudden half the country's watching just because it's that particular actor. And that's when I was living in Texas, that was hard to do because you would have to pay somebody from out here in Los Angeles and then fly them in, put them up in a hotel or whatever, and pay them their daily rate. Well,
we had somebody commented, Kimberly Crittenden said, if you want a 45-year-old statuesque African queen, I'm available.
Absolutely.
All right. So being specific is extremely important, and there's nothing wrong with that. That explains why a lot of the different films that we see have specific actors in there. Whereas I've seen some really good films as well that were not necessarily casted with the the Denzels or the Tom Cruises or the Al Pacinos, but throughout the film it was so well written, but it didn't get as much. It wasn't as highly acclaimed a film. And you're saying because you have to have that budget for those actors included in there.
Yeah, and a big part of your budget is going to be paying your actors and your director, because those are people, and that's the other thing. Mm-hmm. You can maybe not have a big name actor, but have really good actors, of course, and have a big name director, and that'll help your film. Or a big name DP, a director of picture, the guy that actually films your movie. That person could be a big name, and just because they know how that person shoots and the styles that he brings to the table, that also might be, of course, the trifecta, like in most Hollywood movies, is all three of those things happen. You got big name actors, you got a big director, and you got the best DP in the world. And what I was getting at is that living in Texas, it was harder to get to these people, and it was expensive, right, for travel and putting them up. But like when you're here in Los Angeles, for example, Tom Cruise might live down the street, you know what I mean? And you might be able to, get him on cheap because he's here. He doesn't have to travel anywhere. And, you might get him in a different price range or whatever than normally somebody else would, whatever. And they get to go back to their home that night, not to a hotel. So, it's funny because it's hard to shoot here in Los Angeles. You have to have permits. It's difficult, more difficult than it is in other states, but a lot of the talent is here. So, that's kind of the process of it happening here as well.
Yeah. So I know that there's now, Atlanta is a big hub for talent as well. So Atlanta, California, New York seems like where a lot of the talent is. And then we have, like, here in Texas, there's a few big name actors that are here, but not as many as you would find, like you said, if you go to the West Coast, because they're on the West Coast. So one last thing that we'll touch on, because I don't want to give everything away, but I think you've given, like, and Annie Kashi, who is high level in Canada, said Toronto is great too.
Absolutely. Yeah. Toronto's a great place. I have personally not worked there, but I've heard a lot of amazing stories of the professionality that's there and the level of work that goes on there. I know that there's many shows being made there. And there's definitely a lot of big name actors and filmmakers that live in that area. but like I said, I've never been there personally, but I've heard a lot of positive, really, really cool things about that area. Right now, you're having a big influx. Atlanta is definitely one of the hottest, places in film right now. North Carolina, New Mexico, um, some in Texas, and New Orleans still has, like, they're still shooting Queen of the South in New Orleans, and there's other things that are happening. But the reason that these markets like New Orleans, New Mexico, North Carolina have a market there is because of tax incentives. And that's the other thing when you're making a film, and depending on where you're shooting it, for example, if you go to Puerto Rico, or let's say Honduras or something like that, there's certain places that they'll give you 40% of your budget back if you come and shoot there. See, so that's the reason why some of these films are made where they're made, because that state, it gives them an incentive to be there. And so if I'm going to get 40% of my budget back, which I could either roll back into the film and do more, or pay for a higher actor, or whatever it may be, just simply save money, period. I would much rather do that. I mean, I think that's most businessmen would understand that. Yeah,
that's a no-brainer. If you give me 40%, now I have 66% more buying power. Definitely going to that incentive. What's one last thing that you would share with people who are interested in taking their books and turning it into a script that can become a film? What's one last piece of advice that you would give? And I guess we can open it up while he's giving this last tip. If you all have any questions, definitely drop the questions in the comments, and we'll have time for maybe two questions with you all.
I think the biggest thing is, where there's a will, there's a way. So if you really want to get a project done, and you really, I've been watching a lot of things on Zoom meetings and different things that are happening. There's a lot of casting directors out there. There's a lot of agents out there that are spilling their hearts to you and telling you what to do right now. If you're not watching any of that stuff, or you're not invested, you don't want to do this. Mm-hmm. So don't kid yourself and waste your time and your money if you really, really don't want to do this. Now, with there's a will, there's a way, because even if it seems like it's really hard to make it happen, if you really put yourself and your mind to it, you'll figure it out and you'll make it happen. And I'm proof of the pudding, because I've done a couple of projects myself that, people love to say passion projects and this and that. You call it whatever you want. But what I know is that I wanted to do this. I wanted to get it done. And it's been steps. The first two projects that I did were literally just trailers to movies that never got made. But I did something, people watched it, they liked it, and they were like, well, I want to see more of it, right? Or I'm interested, whatever. And so sometimes some of those projects, you move on, you did what you were supposed to do, you didn't have the money to finish, actually going further, but you did something, and it created momentum for you to do the next.
That buzz, yeah.
So, I've gotten to the point where it's gone from trailers to pitch decks, which is another thing we'll talk about later, and then to actually filming 4 episodes, or a short film. And I mean, that's with no money, no budgets, nothing. That's just, me trying to get it done. And, the last thing I guess you'd say is, where there's a will, there's a way. So look around. You'll be surprised that you have a lot more in and around your reach that you thought you didn't have.
Exactly. So just get started, put that passion behind it, and go for it.
Absolutely.
Right. And I can agree with the zero budget. When I hear it a lot of times, people say, well, I want to do this, I want to do that, and then they'll throw, you know, whatever the excuse is. And when it comes down to somebody saying I have a zero budget, it's kind of laughable, because it's not necessarily the money that you have. It may be the connections that you have that have access to the resources that you need. And like you said, when you put that passion behind it, people have a tendency to follow where that passion is going, because they see what's possible, even when it looks bleak. I got one question for you from Kimberly Crittenden. She's the same one who said if you were looking for a 45-year-old-ish African queen, then she's available. She says, how do you get big talent, and how do we get the contact info?
You have to contact their agents.
Okay.
So like go on IMDb, and usually in most cases, you can look through IMDb on people's profiles, and it'll tell you who they're represented by. And you don't try to contact the actor. Don't find him on Instagram and become his friend, and and then try to butter him in. I mean, do whatever you want, but you're not going to get anybody that's a professional hired unless you go through their agent. And so, and money is not always the issue. There might be some big name person that is willing to come work on your film for $2,000, but they need to know the script and be passionate about it before they decide what they're going to do. But yeah, the proper way of doing that is getting a hold of their agent, speaking to them, seeing if they would be interested, sending your getting them to sign an NDA, so that non-disclosure, so that they don't share your project with anybody else, but they're able to read it. I know when I get scripts for auditions.
How are you getting you, man?
When I get scripts for auditions, it'll have my name on it, like at an angle, and they put it all over the script in like it's inked in, but it's not interrupting your read, right? And it's done that way so that the watermark, that's the actual word, so that I can't share it. If I share it, it's got my name that I shared it. You know what I mean? So that's kind of the process. You can't, as much as you're really, really proud of your project, you can't just let everybody read it, because then the cat's out of the bag, and you don't have anything to.
I've learned that the hard way as well. You don't share everything with everybody, because everybody that you're sharing with is not necessarily listening or reading for the same purpose. Some people are reading to borrow, and I use that term borrow in the hood sense. All right. Well, thank you again. We're gonna do the next part of this next Sunday. The info for let me see. You have one more that just popped in. Shirley Connolly said, I have a short video of my book. How and where would I send it for someone to look in a consideration for a movie?
Well, that's kind of a hard one. Same with scripts. You could pitch them to different people. You could send them to different, networks and all of that. Submit them. It doesn't mean that it's going to get looked at. It doesn't mean that anybody has your back per se and even gives a darn. But once again, if you had an agent, if you had a manager, you had an entertainment lawyer that has connections and is passionate themselves about your project, then they could get it in front of people. But in layman terms, you really don't need permission from anybody to make anything. It's all about getting the funding yourself, figuring it out. That's part of the thing that we're going to talk about, is finding your funding, finding the different ways to make it more economical for you to get it done. The biggest thing about nowadays and how Hollywood is changing, and I use the word Hollywood as in the film industry, because of COVID and all of that stuff, and you know, it was already kind of going in that direction, but like video auditions are happening all the time now. No more in-person auditions. Do you have all these platforms via, you know, Facebook, Instagram, blah, blah, blah. So, and man, camera phones like this iPhone right here, I've shot, if you look at any of my Instagram, you know, pictures, I've shot that with my phone and it looks amazing, you know. So the thing is that don't ask permission. Figure a way to do it, get it done, and get it out on these platforms, and let your own, build your own public, and let them decide, you know, if they want to buy your thing or see your thing, or, you know, support your vision, you know. It's just so different. I mean, you can still traditionally go to the Netflix, the certain, you know, Paramount and certain, you know, Sony and whatever to pitch your films, but you're gonna have to.
You got to build your platform first.
Right. And it's kind of one of those things now, like they almost want you to go do everything yourself. And then if they think it's good enough, they might put it in their little circle of
catalog,
trust there, and let it function around. So it's hard to get $2 million to make a movie because these guys love you and you know, they want to make your movie. You know what I mean? Like, you know how many thousands and thousands of people, you know, are holding a script saying, you know, make my movie. And the ones that are getting done are the ones that are doing it themselves, or planning, you know, building, you know, the purpose of getting it done, you know, by actually, there's crowdfunding, there's all these other things, you know, that are out there as well to help you.
Nice. All right. Well, listen, that was some excellent information. I know I learned a lot today. And hopefully the people who have been viewing with us, I keep bumping this desk. That's why you keep seeing the computer shake a little bit.
I thought you were just getting jiggy with it.
Hey, you know, I will. But I want to thank you once again. And like I said before, what we're doing behind the scenes is actually putting the mini course together for you all. That way we have a full program, full details, so that you can walk away not only having the information to get that book turned into a script, but also how to get your funding, how to get the production together, how to get the how to pick the perfect location, and understanding the casting. And you touched on a few things behind the scenes as far as the entertainment lawyers and understanding SAG, the Screen Actors Guild versus independent. So there's a lot that we are still working on behind the scenes. We're going to do this for you all one more time next week, so that we can actually get those of you who are serious about turning your book into a film and showing you how to do it, whether you go the traditional way, which was going through the production studios, or we give you enough information so that you are able to do it and start putting something out and start building your catalog as a new producer, as a new filmmaker. But we're not giving you the microwave version. We're actually giving you the full details of what it takes to turn this into something that you can be proud of for years to come. But
next week, let's touch base with everybody about location and casting.
Yes, sir.
And we'll dive into why casting directors are very important and why picking the right locations are very important. Perfect.
And one thing that I always do at this point, is I do have a few giveaways for the people who are watching. I think we had so much content, I'm going to skip straight into the cash giveaway. So for the first person on the live video that actually drops cash, if you have not won before, there's a $25 cash app that will be transferred into your account within the next 15 minutes. So it is 3:46 Central here, 1:46 Pacific. By 4 o'clock Central and by 2 o'clock Pacific, you could have an extra $25. It might be your chance to go get you an Uber Eats or go get you some groceries for the week. Might be college groceries, but it's groceries. All right. So like I said, the first person that drops cash, they have a $25 cash app giveaway that's coming their way.
I'll send you my poster for Eminem.
Mm-hmm.
And maybe we can we could throw it up next week just so they could see a movie poster. And maybe I could get a copy of one signed from me and JT for you to give away for them as well.
There we go. There we go. All right. And it looks like Miss Harlan Collins was the first person to comment cash. So next week, what we will do is go ahead and put that up, and we'll have that signed copy from my brother Richard and from JT from Queen of the South. So with that being said, brother, I love you, and we will talk again next week. I'll be in contact soon.
All right. You have a good one.
You too.
Thank you, everybody. I'm going to get some rest. Peace.
All right.